Everyone, it's Cope, and I'm here today with a commonly requested video on whether or not using a controller is bad in DBD. Now, I quickly want to preface that my opinion is not one that everyone should follow, but I have played the game for quite a amount of time, and I do feel comfortable using a controller myself. As you can see, I do have a legacy cosmetic, and I do have at least 10,000 hours in Dead by Daylight, spanning back as far as the second day of release. So really quickly, I want to go over the pros and cons of using a controller in DBD that I've come across personally. The pro that I consider more important than anything else is that you can be really comfy and lazy while playing the game like this. A big issue that I used to have that I still actually see a lot of controller players run into is having pickup interactions and actions bound under the same button. I highly recommend not doing this. You can accidentally drop the pallet while trying to heal someone, for an example, and it's absolutely terrible. So I would recommend either using a different button, or what I do personally is just use my mouse and keyboard for actions like those. Another thing that I've been commonly asked is what my controller settings actually are. Now, you're obviously more than welcome to use any buttons that you wish to use for your bindings. However, I think using LB for running and crouching LT, as well as square/X, you're seeing Xbox prompts because that's just what Dead by Daylight does. But I use a PS5 controller for anyone curious. I think those are the most important bindings, as they make the game super comfortable for me to play it personally. Another issue that I came across a lot in the past is finding the correct sensitivity to use. Now, me, personally, I use 70% for both Killer and Survivor, and I have no issues at all playing the game. However, I would highly recommend, once again, just playing around with the settings yourself and finding that comfortable zone for you to feel like, you're not being hindered by using a controller as opposed to mouse and keyboard. This used to be a much larger issue in the past. For those that don't know, the sensitivity was way lower back then, and then they finally increased it for controller players, which is awesome. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. How can I play a killer like the Huntress, the Blight, the Deathsinger, the Hillbilly with a controller when mouse and keyboard is way better because of the sensitivity differences? While I partially agree with that you can hit, higher flicks and do crazier things by using mouse and keyboard as opposed to controller, I have a stronger belief that you're better off developing your skills by just constantly playing that killer, if that makes sense. In other words, if you put enough time into being the best controller Huntress, the best controller Nurse, the best controller Blight, as you see fit, then I do think that is actually possible. Some killers will also just not even be your cup of tea. For example, I've only played the Nurse on mouse and keyboard, and I didn't really prefer it, so I haven't played her since at all. She's just not my kind of killer, and that's totally fine. You'll find some of those in the roster, and it is what it is. Just play what you enjoy. Last but not least, I'd quickly like to go over how it feels to play as a survivor with a controller. I feel like it's more controlled, no pun intended, to loop around and look behind yourself simultaneously, as opposed to whenever I played on keyboard and mouse. But again, that has to do with the comfort level and the amount of time that I put into using controller for the game. Anyways, that about wraps this video up. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you have any general questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. Thank you again for being here, and I'll catch you in a future video, hopefully. See you later.